Great. A very good morning to you. Yeah, welcome back to the TDA Learning Festival. Yep, so for my session, I'm going to cover a bit on how has we transformed from a project to a product-centric organization. I'll do a brief review about the benefits and the challenges as we digitally transform our public services. Then look at this product-centric organization and how it can help us to picture in our mind as you do the transformation. And then I'll cover a little bit on how to build up this product management practice to support a product-centric organization. And then I'll have a chat with Kendrick, Director of Trusted Data and Services from GovTech, and we will take your questions and answers, which you can type into the chat. Right. Okay. Yeah. So as we transform the digital public service, we have reaped huge benefits. Right, a lot of survey has shown that we have, for example, 24/7 accessibility has been greatly used, especially during the pandemic period. If we suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and worried, have we paid our town council bills? We can actually log on to go and check some of these services, right? The survey shows that approximately 50% less time now is spent interacting with the public administration. This has results in time savings for both the citizens, our customers, as well as our public service representatives, right? And all this are done at more than 50% lower the cost, right? And then even the case handling efforts, right? These are basically, if I got to get back to you because I need to talk to the supervisor, I will call you back in the daytime and so on. This kind of case handling effort dropped by approximately 60%. So we see huge benefits there. Yeah. So as we see the review of how well we're doing, we see Singapore is doing pretty well. You look at all the reports about digital government and so on. Singapore is right up there with many of these very innovative nations. Right? We have many successes in various parts of the agencies and so on. Okay. Yes, as the rest of the agencies joining us on this transformation journey, are probably on different parts of the journey. We just want to review some of these challenges we will continually face, right? We have numerous actors, sometimes across different agencies, sometimes no clear hierarchical control, and sometimes even have to touch the regulatory and change a little bit of that so that we can get on and make the digital workflow smoother and faster. And to compound that, we have a vast scope of high number of services to digitize. And so we need to prioritize, and yet we have limited resources, okay? Especially in the areas in the new technologies and in the agile ways of working. And we also suffer because the citizens, the customers, sometimes have no formal seat at our table. So we can't really get their feedback, get their review. We can't get representative enough because there's such a big cross-segment of users and so on onto our table. So we have to do our customer journey. We have to interview, we do focus group in order to achieve that. And coupled with that, we have to build very broad support because there's so many stakeholders involved, the civil servants that will still be managing many of these processes, the politicians and the general public, right? So how to overcome these challenges, right? Experts tell us we have to adopt agile. You probably heard about that a lot nowadays. We have to design for great customer experience. We definitely want that. Make it faster, convenient, the least step, and then always reminding us what we have done, and so on and so forth, right? With giving an audit trail. And then we need to focus on the product analytics, right? Because that will tell us where are the areas we are doing well, where are the areas we can improve. We get insights as to where new features and new value can be added, right? And maybe even new products that can be built. At the same time, we need to deploy small multidisciplinary product teams, right? So these are not our usual cross-functional teams, but it involves people from the business side of the government, right? With the UX people, with the development people, maybe with the marketing people as well, as they come together in autonomous groups that will try to deliver features, solve product problems in a very quick way. Now, however, what are we transforming our organization into? if we want a picture to picture at the front as we continue gesture, what would that picture be? I would like to borrow a term that is actually not that new, what we call a product-centric organization. And then try to interpret and use it in digital economy, right? And the digital organization. So, so definitely all those best practices need to be there, but there's also need to be a focus on how best to organize our resources, our talent, our people, our tools, right? For example, how do we architect our platforms, right? Okay, to build the capability so we can deliver the digital products and service efficiently, right? Meet high demands of high performance. That means fast, the response come back quick, easy to use, and able to scale, right? You probably heard about all the difficulties and sometimes challenges we have, right? At peak loads of unexpected, we run into problems, right? So we need to develop the product capabilities in order to deliver them, okay? In other words, right, we want the tech prowess of the digital product companies. You look at all these big names, right? We want to have the power that they have, the cutting edge, the processes that they have, and basically transform our digital product delivery organizations. And these are not our typical IT groups, right? But these are cross-functional groups that we put together to deliver product features, solve product problems, and so on. And they are autonomous, powerful, and are quick in the delivery. These new product-centric business models offer quicker business outcomes. We get them faster, improve customer experiences, reduce friction within the organization as they are relying on working together on the business outcome. And we gain flexibility in working with partners, working with different vendor solutions, and be able to incorporate all those into our products, into our platforms, into our ecosystems, right? A survey done by Gartner about the benefits of adopting the product-centric model. You look at, this is from a scale of 1 to 7, right? When you adopt this model, there is closer engagement between IT and business. They work together on the same KPIs, which is a business outcome, right? We transform the culture and the organization to become more customer-centric, which is our citizen-centric, faster, we deliver the features faster, higher quality, and more innovative solutions. And we have engaged citizen engagement, right? Easy handling of demands from partner. We can grow quickly with them, lower costs, and even easier compliances in many instances because we built all these compliances into the digital workflow and so on. So how do we transform into a product-centric organization? Within the short time that I have left, I'm just going to share a few keys that I think are keys, right? Okay. The first is we have to shift from a project to a product thinking kind of mentality, right? So the product thinking, normally also called product mindset, is basically uses the concept of a product to try to focus the organization to build the business and digital capabilities so that we can deliver the value to the customer and support a sustainable business models. And very often these are the new digital business models, right? So it encompasses all the execution of the business goals and then the selling to the internal and external customer, building the organizational capability so we can design, develop, launch, sustain, operate, support the product, right? And scale it where we need to, right? And of course, you probably know by now, when we talk about product, we could be talking about a service, we can talking about an app, or even a gadget like our Trace Together token, right? That is still a product, right? With software and hardware all rolled in. And of course, all this will have to work hand in hand with the best practice like lean, agile, design thinking, and so on, right? Now, a lot has been talked about between the difference between project and product thinking. I'm just going to focus on 3 key ones that I highlighted for you here on the right, right? First of all, regard to change, we embrace change when we have product thinking. Change that will contribute to the business outcome. We definitely want them, right? And that will speed up the value delivery very quickly, right? Our goals, both the business and the IT and the development teams and the whole organization now is focused on delivering outcomes. And of course, there are quite a number of them. We rank them by business value. If we become very clear priority and how to do some of these things, right? When we prioritize. And the team, like I say, are now multidisciplinary product teams, very versatile, not just specialists in their fields and have to wait for other people to take over and so on, but they can solve the problem and they can hack and they can brainstorm and come up with new solutions. All the time growing in the communities of practice that we put them into. As they grow in their product, in these more permanent teams, they grow in their skills, right? To be more versatile into all the different areas, like into the business, understanding the domain and so on. The second tip is to leverage new technology, right? Okay, we probably expected this, right? We want to modernize the stack, and you probably, it's close to lunchtime, right? So I'm thinking about the snack. We're talking about digital to the core. Now, actually, this one is from a title of a book, right? And it now represents us wanting to change the internals, right? So that we can be really powerful product delivering solutions that we can deliver out there, right? Okay. If we don't do that, we will get fragmented application platforms, architectures, and even silos of inefficiencies. Sometime in the development context, we call this technical debt, and it will come back and haunt us, right? And it actually increases the cost of ownership and eat into all our innovation budgets if we don't do this once and for all. But of course, sometimes we have to experiment before we have to decide to make these big investments, right? And I like to think of this picture of a submarine. I like to watch these submarine war shows, right? And the captain will be shouting into the mic, full speed ahead, give me 50 knots, and then turn left and turn right. And then these old-fashioned submarines, right? In the engine room, you have these macho men cranking up the engines, opening the above, pumping extra horsepowers into the engine so you can go ahead. Now, if we don't fix the internal, very often have it keep cranking, right? These platform and architectures, they will give way. And then when problems happen, it takes a long time to fix. It's like an engine blowout, right? We have to change the shaft. That's going to take a long time, right? Now, so to actually change the digital core involves a big investment, right? We need to plan ahead. We have to build up the technology stack in an incremental fashion and evolve it based on an integrated adaptive technology blueprint that is flexible, extensible, scalable, reliable, secure. All this long list of attributes, right? And we keep doing it. We have to keep maintaining it. As a new technology coming, we have to try new stuff, all right? Yeah. And so this is an ongoing journey that is happening all the time. But once we have changed the engine, right? Now it's a 2.0 cross-share engine, we can unleash our digital power, right? And that means that we can, for example, take on any kind of payment platform, right? Communicate with our stakeholders through many of these available communication platforms, understand what is happening in the social media, mine the data and understand how our product's doing, right? And integrate with our partner platforms. And then we can build up ecosystems and platforms from there, and maybe even be able to have interoperate with all the different cloud solutions and all the hybrid solutions and so on and so forth. We can unleash this power. We can quickly respond to changes and try new things, right? So how do we structure our organizations, right? Normally, this transformation will have a digitally delivery office at the bottom, right? Or on top, maybe. Yeah, better to say it's on top. They are basically, they may be called transformation office and so on, driving the tech priorities, managing the dependencies, deciding where to locate the funds and the staff and the talent, right? Our infrastructure team will be trying to increase the efficiency, consistency, stability, or the number of that we listed previously, right? They're fixing the pipes, they're maintaining and changing the engine as we move along, as we crank along, right? And then we have the platform teams, right? Developing usable features that can be easily used by all the products that are going to sit on top of them. These are what we call the platform teams, creating platform services, right? And we have the product teams on top, basically building the digital products that are customer facing, that face the citizens, that talks about the CX, right? Customer experience, and deliver all those experiences, right? Okay. Here's a typical digital product stack in the government, right? So we have all the government backend system at the bottom, right? We have all the core components layer, which are probably formed as a platform, right? And then through API, connect to the digital products that we're going to build, that agencies can build, for example, for vehicle registration, for change of residency. All these are basically apps and that we can build on top of these platforms. Now, fortunately, GovTech has created this Singapore government tech stack, that's on the right, that take care of the nitty-gritties, a lot of this stuff for us. Right, this is a good starter kit. We can, and this stack will continue to evolve, right, as we fix the pipes, increase the capacity, add in new platforms, and so on and so forth. While you just focus on the customer, focus on the experience, and so on. So it becomes a lot easier to do. The blueprint for the digital organization, this one came from Gartner, will probably look a little bit like that, right? We have all those important apps, government systems here, right? We have an API event mediation kind of architecture that can take on all the requests that come down to the API, right? And we build all our products on top that are multi-channel, that can handle touch, chat, gestures, and even voice, right? Okay, and we face the internal customers like the employees, or we face the external citizens, right? And even the partners, they're up there, right? We have all these platform teams building all the various platforms for us, all the time improving them. We have the product team building the apps that are customer facing, supported by all these very important roles, right? Like the product manager, the UX, the API person, and so on and so forth, the DevOps and the cloud architect, and then we try to incorporate all these new cutting edge technologies, and this is probably supported through the experts, right? They will support the teams as they start to build all these products with all these new technologies inside them, okay? And design ops, probably you heard about them. We design the things that can be operated, can be deployed, can be easily scaled and so on, right? Work closely with the DevOps, right? So scalability would be a problem, reliability will be there, security will be there. Thirdly, we need to position product management as a core for everything digital, right? So if we are building a product-centric organization, then we are building products, right? So this will be the central practice that we need to frame out how everybody else does, right? So we use this best practice to organize the teams, guide everything that we do. For example, like what products and services are we going to invest in? What new platforms are we going to build and evolve them into? And then we try to understand the customer journey, the experience, look at the data, we design, we develop, we build, we operate. So we build up this capability that may not be there now, or if it is, may not be in the form that we need them when we deliver our digital products. Okay. And then around this framework, we embrace all the new practices. These are the cutting edge practices that are coming from all these digital companies, right? They share with us, we tried it out, right? For example, we want to automate everything as much as possible. Regression testing is a pain in the chore. I used to be a test manager, right? Code scanning is also a chore, right? If we can automate a lot of these things, we can move a lot faster, right? And these practices help to build reliability, help us to understand, for example, the analytics help us to understand how the customer is using and how well we can improve, right? In the morning when BT talk about how to use that data, is really interesting about how important data analytics is. And as we scale up from the product, right? Like this morning, the MOE example, right? We look into the new models of the platforms that face the customer. These are not the internal platforms, the external platforms that face the customer, and the ecosystem as we work with all our partners. We work with a non-government organization, right? Seasoned development, right? To build up the ecosystem, to create the digital economy. Right? Now, allow me to share a few slides from DVS as an organization, right? They are interestingly doing exactly what we are talking about here. It's such a good example. This was actually shared on their Investor Day. They basically did some research and found that like Google, Amazon, these big boys doesn't get to where they are from day one. there were some big hiccups, right? You look at what they had, what happened in the year 2000. These are the big hiccups, right? Amazon, for example, to compile the code, they need 3 days to compile the binary, make it run. And this cannot be working at the digital speed that we are, right? So these issues, for example, drive them to want to transform their organization to be more and more product-centric, right? Netflix, for example, in July 2007 has a major outage, right? That changed their thinking and to transforming their organization. And they are the forefront in this thing we call chaos engineering, where they look at how to manage things when things seems to go out of hand unexpectedly, right? And DBS began their journey in actually 2000, just past 2010, and they have been transforming since, right? And then how DBS does is basically at the core of what they do, they put together those things that we talk about that should be in a product-centric organization, right? And then basically they surround this with the best practices that are emerging, that are coming out, and they explore this, right? That could make their system even better, their pipes bigger, and their engine even more powerful. They are tuning the throttle and so on and so forth, right? And then when this thing is ready, they are unleashing this power into all their markets, right? They actually created in India a digital bank completely based on digital. No, everything is done digital. You make a deposit digital in India. And the first year they have 1 million customers, right? And then now even as the digital banks come up, they are already a digital bank, right? So competition can be easily won off, and they are eating into other people's lunch, right? You probably know about their foray into the second-hand market, offering their financial solutions very easily through APIs, right? They can plug into all the different marketplaces and platform very easily, offering their services, right? Even SIA is doing the same, right? Okay, they're going after the KrisFlyer, right? They basically want to export their API so that they basically extend the ecosystem and so on, right? But the transformation continues, right? Has it continued to tune the engine and so on and so forth. Now, a fourth tip is that for a product-centric organization, you of course have to build up the product management practice, right? And there were a lot of knowledge about this. For example, this is basically a learning journey that was designed by McKinsey, right? As they look at and interview companies and look at them, right? And you look at the things they have bootcamps, right? Build up foundation knowledge, you have shadowing, peer coaching, you know, community building, and more bootcamps for advanced, and then certification and build on the capabilities and mentoring and by senior colleagues and so on. So to build up that practice, right? So ISS has this digital product management framework, right? So this can form the core of what a product-centric company will need to do to deliver digital products. And then we can build new practices, cutting-edge technologies around it, like in the DBS example, right? So we have worked with GovTech, right, to basically look at a lot of this training, right? And for example, this digital product management bootcamp was designed together with Kendrick, right, my guest later on, yeah, and Dominic, basically for the bootcamp for all the digital product delivery stuff. So this will be the people that is going to work in this new organization. They need to understand the new framework and basically understand how are they going to work in this way. And the digital product management bootcamp will give them a head start. And they need to go into the teams now and then understand how it's going to be done. Then they can attend a 4-day managing digital product course that will bring them into the core, the digital product management framework that I mentioned earlier on. Right? For the managers that were involved in the transformation, right? Because each organization is different, right? We recommended to attend this product thinking for organization course. It's a 2-day that explain the why, the what, and a little bit of how to make that transformation. Stuff I covered, some of it relates to that, right? Okay. And for the product and platform managers who really need to assemble the team to deliver the solutions, right? And we recommend them all these courses here. The digital product strategy is a case-based course that we meet once a week. We basically digest a case, look at why certain cases done so well, certain products are so successful, certain products are not so successful. Excuse me. And the strategic product market fit, right, is an important course that talks about how your product can fit into the gap in the market. And if it isn't, adjust and grow into the market and then grow from there, right? So it talks about the techniques of listening to the customer, the data analytics to understand how well we're doing and then pivot and change along the way. And then, of course, the more advancement as you're ready to go into the platform ecosystem, come for our architecting platform as a business course, right? Again, this is a once a week thing or over a 4-day period, right? And then the digital products delivery, this one goes into the specialization of managing the technical teams, right? In delivering all of those technologies up, right? Help you to understand that. Okay. Now, at this point, I would like to invite Kendrick to come and join me. Yeah, I know he's probably very tired after doing 2 sessions in the morning. Yeah, but he's at the forefront of this transformation, right? We can probably ask him a lot of questions. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions and learn from him. What are the challenges and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So first of all, you got any comments first, Kendrick?
No, so Daniel, thank you for this presentation. I just maybe want to encourage everyone to, who is new to product management to consider the bootcamp that Daniel shared about just now. Dominic and I together with ISS, we actually put this together because in the organization, we have many people who are looking at product management. I mean, for the same reasons that Daniel has mentioned, right? That we need to organize ourselves differently. So there's one group is asking, what is product management, right? Then there's also another group that's people who are working with us, but we quite often have new hires who come in product management from adjacent practices, right? Be it project management, delivery management, right? So they also want to get some fundamentals, right? And then with people who have been with us for a while but haven't had some formal baseline, right? So I think if you just want to know about it or you're in any of these groups, please consider the Product Management Bootcamp. I think it will give you a very good overview of what product management is. It will provide a common language, for you to work with your friends' product management, right? And I think more importantly, it will give you a sense of actually what are the topics, and the knowledge, the competencies that are within the practice, right? And then give you a frame to then explore deeper, right, in the individual areas, right? So I think earlier in the morning, I talked about a total product success framework, right? You will notice that each one of the framework requires different skill sets, right? And basically, the bootcamp would give you a glimpse of each and every one, right? So if there are areas that you're interested in, areas you feel you want to improve upon, then the bootcamp tells you, right, what the next step can be, right? So that's a shameless plug for the TDA and the bootcamp.
Hey, thank you. Kendrick. Yeah, we have a question actually about product-centric teams. Wouldn't they build silos? When we think of services and journeys or ecosystem as citizens move along the different stages in life, a service or service-oriented organization can cut across multiple products. And products can be non-digital as well, especially when we target, very long question, the general population. Yes, definitely we agree that the products can be, not just apps, right? Can be non-digital, like I mentioned, like the Trace Together is actually a token, right? So is there a product, we're talking about a product-centric organization. The teams are actually cross-functional teams, right? Cross-multidisciplinary teams. Actually, in a more advanced course, we will talk a little bit about what we call digital product portfolio management. That is where all these different products, right, are being synced up together and aligned to the organization strategy, right? So then there is less chance of silos being built by the products. And a lot of these products actually work together, right? So basically, we are building up capability as an ecosystem as a whole. Yeah. Yeah. Kendrick, you got anything to add to the question?
Yeah, maybe I want to ask us to think about products this way, right? I think if you refer to the earlier conversation, I think if you look at say Parents Gateway, right? In a way, it's like a classical digital product. It's an app, right? If you look at some of the things that CDL has done, City Nexus, right? It's about the physical to digital bridge, right? And I think these days that falls in the domain of what we will call IoT devices, right? And then in the case of SingPass, there's that QR scanning, which is also a physical to digitalizing physical interactions, right? With products like Verify, right? And Trace Together, end of the day, like it or not, actually, or it may be a physical front end for the less digital savvy, but actually the whole back end is digital, because otherwise you will not be able to contact trace at scale, right? So I think the point is really that at its core, right, the products are actually digital, right? But the interface into the world, interface with the human beings, based on what the users need and want, right, may be physical, right? So I think you have to think of it that way, because at the end of the day, it's really about the data, processing the data, making insights of data, and then acting on the data. Right. On the question about product-centric and silos, I think the way to think about it is like that, right? The evolution of products would be, if you have one product, you will start thinking about how you can grow the customer base, serve more customers, address additional use cases, serve the ecosystem, right? And invariably, if you look at the digital giants today, right, a lot of them move from products to platforms. We take share earlier. Did we have a platform vision when it started? Not exactly, right? But then the evolution came naturally, right? So I think that eventually, to be able to manage and grow products on a platform, you precisely have to break down these silos, right, and work collaboratively across products, right? The products need to reinforce each other, right? You need to synergize, you need to build on each other's strengths, and therefore you grow, right? So I think one of the interesting things we did in 2018 was, at the time we were going around, telling people, please sign up for my info, right? And then we took a step back and say, hey, actually, if you have a SingPass authentication, then your profile should be part of your identity, right? So why do we go around asking people to sign up, right? So, we are thankful that I think management agreed with us, right? And in November 2018, on the same day my daughters were born, we provisioned, right, all SingPass users with a mindful profile, so that importantly, right, they could use the profile immediately at the point of transaction, whenever that may be, right? So the instant use, right, and the fact that everyone has one, right, then catalyzes the growth of the product and the growth of the platform, right? So I think contrary to this point, it's really that when you look to expand the product, that it is where you actually need to work across these perceived boundaries, and then that is important for being successful.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I just wonder, when you focus on delivering a good experience to the customer, would it also involve a service-oriented kind of culture as well, being instilled? Probably, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So let's ask Kendrick then. Like, for example, there are quite a number of people are being moved into the product management role, right? What would be your advice for them besides the training that we mentioned earlier on?
Well, I mean, actually, as you saw from this morning, product management is cross-functional, right? So actually, as a product manager, you need to, I guess, in a way, be aware of all the capabilities, right, that come under the total product success framework, right? But you can't be an expert in everything, right? So I think you need to be aware, you need to know, but ultimately you need to work with a much wider team, right? So I think the first thing is about teamwork, about working in a cross-functional manner, right? Cutting across, policy, comms, legal, right? Engineering, operations, marketing, right? So I think the first thing is about that, taking that view, right?
Yeah. So don't have to be a Superman.
No, you can't be a Superman,
yeah.
right? I mean, even if you wear underwear outside and wear a cape, you will still not be Superman. So you can't, right?
Yeah.
So it's really that they're working together. The second thing I think is really about focusing on the customer, right? So I think this morning's presentation was very clear, right? We take Ivan, myself, we all said, know who your customers are, give them what they need, make sure it's useful, right? And then they'll keep coming back, and you grow the product, you grow the platform, right? And I think for SingPass, for us, we have 3 key groups. We have the citizen, which we engage through the TechKaki platform. The developers who we engage through Stack, as well as our own API portal, right? We have businesses, who we engage, some of them quite intimately, right? With the aim of building the roadmap for APIs, right? So customer, I think that's very key. I mean, the third thing is really about operations and engineering, right? Because at the end of the day, the engagement team can go out and sell, and convince people to use, but they won't have the confidence, if the engineering and operations team don't work very hard to, make sure it's available, right? Because customers, at the end, what they want is they want to be able to be open for business 24/7, right? And it's also important to be able to scale, because you can be very successful in marketing, but when people come in, you just had a Prime Day sale, right? So I mean, if you come in on Prime Day sale and they can't check out, then very upset, it's opportunity loss, right? So I think Chao said, you launch a product, actually day 1 is more important, next day is more important, because if things don't run, if you can't scale up, you can't meet the demand that you promised, that you anticipated, then you're in trouble, right? Then people will stop coming back.
Yep.
And I think the last thing is really measure success, right? So I think for us, I think we shared this morning, for the app, we measure downloads, MAU, transactions. For the APIs, we measure number of relying partners, number of transactions, right? So I think you need to measure this. You need to track it closely. Different types of products will have different measures. So for example, some of the teams that do internal products, employee products, tell us that downloads is not very useful. They prefer to look at DAU over MAU. I mean, that's true. It's relevant for them, right? But I think ultimately we are looking at a common set of metrics segmented by product-specific metrics, right? But the most important point actually is taking these metrics and working it backwards, asking yourself, what do I need to achieve monthly? What do I need to achieve weekly, right? So that you have lead indicators and you can intervene early to ensure that you come out where you want to be at the end of the day.
Does this metrics change as your product evolve?
I would say that the metrics you track are probably okay. At least for us, the metrics we track have been more or less consistent, right? We more or less tracked this set of metrics for a while, but I think the focus is different, right? I think when we had the small number of partners and transactions below, right? There was a lot of focus on using the metrics to drive and improve adoption. But then once you reach a certain scale, then the focus really is on perhaps how do you drive more throughput, how do you drive more usage, right? You look at onboarding, we brought it down from months to weeks, right? To days. Can you bring it down even more, for example? Right. So I think the metrics are somewhat consistent, but I think what you focus on, right, what you seek to improve on, right, will change depending on the maturity of the product.
I see. Yeah. So, what other skills you expect this guy to have? Right? If the technical skills like legal, those are supported by the team, do you look for specific, let's say, business equipment, public sector experience, maybe even private sector experience? What specific competencies are you looking for?
So this is sort of like a recruitment type question, right? What do we look for in a product manager? Actually, the reality is quite interesting, right? I'm not sure what is the experience of other teams, but I think it's a case where it can be quite challenging to find seasoned product managers. All right. So I think where there are there's a job fit, right? They're interested in a career in the public service, right? We have made offers. But I think we also look at staff who, like I said, come from adjacent practices, be it delivery management, project management, and so forth, right? Who are interested and also have taken them on board, right? I think ultimately it's really about the desire to grow in this area, right? And having, I guess, sufficient foundational skills and background to then take on the product role, right? So if you look at the total success framework, actually, is there a specific box that said product? No, right? Right?
Yeah.
it built on many other professions, right? So in a way, it's really how you bring all of this together, right? So I think earlier I said, I was asked recently, if I'm product manager, is marketing my job? If I'm product manager, right, is the terms and conditions my job, right? So I guess, and I said earlier, right, if it's necessary for the product to succeed, then it's your job, right? But are you the expert? No lah, right? So would you work, say, with commerce and marketing? Yes, you would, right? Their expertise would be helping you, to craft the message, to engage the media, manage the media, to pitch the story so that, media would carry it. But ultimately, you need to control the message, right? The T's and C's, what would be the reasonable and appropriate terms, right, that allow the risks to be borne fairly between the different partners. You have to decide, and then legal can help you write it, right? So I think for us, we've been fortunate because a lot of our teams like comms, legal, marketing, procurement, I think we've reached a point where, where we feel that they are like co-owners of the product with us. Right? So whenever we deal with an issue, they would say, this is how we think we can succeed, given the rules and the environment, right? Which is very different from perhaps what some of us have experienced in the past, where they just throw the rule book at you. So I think one of the roles of the product manager really is to build this partnership and relationship, right? So that every stakeholder co-owns the product, right? Because only then will you be working in alignment and working for the success of the product. So I'm not sure if that has quite answered your question. I don't think it's a one size fits all.
Yeah. So because sometimes people say that the product manager is like the CEO of the product. Or some people say, oh, they are just an orchestrator, so we have all these experts out there, they orchestrate all these things together and then basically form the symphony. So there's one end that says, wow, it seems very powerful, but it means they have to do everything, like you say, everything is your job. Or the orchestra view is like, everybody is going to do their job, I just need to, lift up my hands and everything will fall in place.
I mean, if I can borrow something from project management, right? Basically, in project management, you have RACI matrix, right? So I think the product manager is accountable, right? But for many of the work that needs to be done, then he would then say so and so is R responsible, right? And ultimately, when you put all the R's together with the product manager being accountable, then that's what is needed to execute, right? Yeah. So project management is an important skill for product managers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we can build that up, so project managers can progress to the product management role, right? Yeah. We have a question coming in. How can agency get organized to take a product-centric approach vis-a-vis a current project setup? So it's a little bit like migrating from one form to the other. Where do I start, right? Especially, is this just agencies, right? Yeah. Yeah. How will you see this?
No, so I think, when Daniel started his presentation, he used one word quite a bit, which is mindset, right? So it's really thinking about things, right? Because at the end of the day, any initiative, when you execute, ultimately it translates into a set of tasks, a certain timeline, certain entry-exit criteria, and so on and so forth, right? If you think a little bit about that, actually that's project management, right? So the question then really is, if the executional layer feels more like project management, right? Then what is the mindset I need to take at the layer above that, right? To then ensure that I am taking a product management approach, right? Right. So, for example, when you do requirements, right, instead of saying the user has to tell me the requirements, right, or instead of saying I don't know what to do because I don't know the requirements, then the question is that if indeed the customer is most important, right, then how do I know who the customers are? How do I talk to the customers, the real customers, and find out what they want, right? So, I adjunct with ISS on the product strategy course that Daniel shared earlier. And during that course, the participants are asked to think about a product, right? And then come up with a business plan, right? And I think one of the things, and I'm on the industry panel for that, and one of the things we find ourselves asking the students a lot is, you have this proposal, actually have you asked the users, right? And actually, what we expect from them is quite straightforward. I mean, basically the intent is that you need to break out your comfort zone and go and ask a friend, ask a family member, or even, someone on the street. So I know for certain classes, like if you go for a full-time class, they actually make you, go on the street and ask your fellow students, right? For example, if you're going to develop something that's student-centric, or go on the street and ask some strangers, at least do some straw poll, right? So I think, so I think it's firstly about the mindset, and I think secondly, depending on the size of the team in the agency, right? Then there are many possible approaches, right? I think in a bigger agency, it is possible to say, we try with team A. Team A organize a bit differently. We don't break what we need to deliver to the agency, but still able to demonstrate that, there's a different operating model, and then slowly diffuse that model, right, to the rest of the organization. In a smaller agency, I think that's going to be more difficult right? And it's likely going to be a case where you have to think differently within a current structure, right? And I think in any of these configurations, right, then there are resources in HQ, right, like myself, like Dominic, like VTech, and you can always reach out to us, right, and we'll be very happy to share and give you advice as to, how to deal with specific challenges that you may face, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. Hopefully you're not looking for a magic wand, right? Definitely, we're always happy to share.
Yeah, right. So ultimately, transformation is actually like a major big change program, right? Then you have to change people, you have to get quick wins, set the vision, change the KPIs across the organization, and that begins the change. So I think the process is really big and complicated, right? I've heard of some success stories, for example, of smaller agencies who basically try out and pilot some of these products. And they build the product and then basically look at, how much did we save? And then basically use that as a way to showcase the success, right? Exactly like what Kendrick just mentioned, right? And then basically try to propagate that culture. Yeah, yes. Okay, but of course, change management takes a while. Not easy to change people's mindset very quickly, right? So we have to keep repeating and keep focusing on the goals, and then we will start moving slowly along the way. Yeah, hopefully speed up along towards the end. Yeah. Let me see whether we have any other questions, right? Okay. Yeah. There's a question about digital to the core, right? Whether the investment is really a very big gamble filled with risk. Yeah. Maybe I'll start a little bit with that first, right? So a lot of organizations, what they do is first experiment and try it out first, right? They build the digital products, but the back end, the engine maybe still the same. We patch a little bit here and there, and we try it out, we experiment, and then we say, wow, this is giving us a lot of mileage, and we are looking at a lot of potential. And then you may want to jump on the bandwagon and say, okay, I'm going to transform myself big time, right? So the risk is in some way can be managed by experimenting a little bit and see whether this is the way to go, right? So of course there is always a danger, because somebody warned me recently, say that, wow, the vendors will be trying to sell you all this new technology you talk about, right? And if you keep buying all this, it may not basically give you the mileage that you need. So we have to be careful of what we want to do, and then to plan and do it in an incremental fashion. Yeah, I think that will help to mitigate some part of the risk. If you are ready to roll and scale, then we probably will scale up, right? If not, we will try with small things and then grow to bigger things and so on. Yeah. Kendrick, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think if you ask the question that way, right, it's a big gamble filled with risk, right? It sounds like it's a question between do or don't do, right? But I think if you heard Ivan this morning, he said that why did CDL do City Nexus? Like he said, we did it because it was existential, right? And what did that mean? He said that if we don't do it, we'll be like any other developer. There'll be no reason for anybody to choose us over somebody else. And then the consequences will be quite dire, right? So that was what he said. I didn't say it, he said it this morning, right? So I think when we think about this, we need to ask ourselves, do or don't do? If we don't do, what will happen? And I think for us, at least from NDI perspective, it's the same, right? Because if we believe that the digital economy needs digital infrastructure, then we need to do this, and then we need to manage the risk as we go along.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we do this in a way, right, that wouldn't bring down the government? Yeah. How do we do this in a way, that ensures that we build towards success,
Yeah.
Right. So I think we talked a lot about that, right? Focusing on the users, focusing on operations, measuring success, and all that, So I think I think my challenge is really to look at it that way, right? And ask ourselves, right? If it's something we need to do, then how do we manage it along the way?
Mm. That's a great point, yeah. So we need to do how to manage the risk along the way, yeah. Mm. Any other questions? Yeah, we have only like a few minutes left. Kendrick, do you have any last words for the audience before we go?
All right, so I'll do another commercial break, right? Since this is TDA, right? So earlier I talked about the bootcamp, right? And I said that the bootcamp, you know, we work only together with NUS-ISS for people who want an introduction. And then Daniel shared the various programs available for product management under the TDA. The other program I find myself recommending to the more seasoned practitioners is really the one called Strategic Product Market Fit, SPMF. Right, so this is not the one I teach, right? And the reason why I recommend it to practitioners is really because if you remember the product success framework, I think we are very familiar with the part that's on the horizontal line, right? Which is the launching and then maybe going into operations, right? But then how do you develop that virtuous cycle, right, of community engagement, marketing enhancement, pricing and positioning, and and so on and so forth, to create that self-reinforcing loop, right, which we called the virtuous cycle of product management, right? And the SPMF course deals with that, right? It brings a very business dimension to the picture, right? How do you build a business case for ongoing enhancements? How do you price it? How do you market it? And so forth, right? So this is really a pitch to those of us who have been in this practice for a while. You've been doing this, right? And perhaps you want a frame, right? Right. So my suggestion is look out for the Strategic Product Market Fit program in the TDA catalog, right? And then sign up for it, attend it, right? And then let us know how you think it can be improved for your context.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you so much. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we are putting a lot of effort into contextualizing the course and involving Dominic is actually spending a lot of time to make sure the course is at the peak, right? Yeah. So yeah, with that, we will end our session here, right? Thank you so much, Kendrick. I know you're very tired now. I myself is feeling tired already.
From the speed of my speech,
but you're more relaxed now. Yeah, a lot more relaxed now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Right.